So this week on Mark My Words, I have an incredibly inspiring guest. It's actually somebody I frankly have only known for about a week. He emailed me on my favorite social media platform, LinkedIn, and so he wanted to be on my show. And just me being me, I'm like, whoa, that's just coming out of nowhere. But I checked him out and we talked a little bit, and I love his story. He is a podcaster, and actually, I'll start with his main job, which is a motivational coach. And his company is, oh my gosh, a call to action. And I'm already referring to my phone like I told you earlier. I usually have this stuff on the top of my head. But Paul Forchione, which is not actually spelled like the normal fortune, spelled differently. And this is Paul Forchione. His main task at this point is a motivational coach at a call to action. And he has an incredible story. He's also just started out a podcast, and we're going to talk all about that today. So without further ado, I'll stop rambling, and this is Paul Forchione. Welcome to Mark My Words.
Thank you so much for having me. And I got to tell you, one of the main reasons why I wanted to reach out to you, I love the title of your podcast. Mark My Words is play on words. Your name's Mark My Words. I love it. It really came together. So I'm like, I got to hit this guy up. I want to see if I can get on his podcast. And sure enough, we had a great conversation the other day. We meshed well, and here we are doing a podcast together. So I'm excited to be here.
Well, everybody seems to love the name of this podcast, and I've mentioned it on a few episodes. It wasn't my idea. I wish I had come up with it, but I guess I wasn't quite that clever, but I took the idea and ran with it. And for me to have somebody email me and say, I want to be on your show was like, wow, that was very flattering. And especially once I learned a little bit about you, I'm like, wow, this guy has his own company, and he's really serious about what he's doing. He's not like a knucklehead or anything. He's really serious. And
well, I appreciate it. I'm not a knucklehead. That's a good compliment. I'll take that. No knucklehead here.
Yeah, no, you're definitely more than just not a knucklehead. I want to put that out there. But you know how it goes. You get emails from people. Like, I just got an email about an hour or so ago from somebody pitching me a podcasting product. And I'm like, I don't even know who you are. They somehow, I guess they saw my post on LinkedIn today, and they were like, oh, great name for a podcast. And everybody loves the name of this podcast. And very flattered that you reached out. I mean, it's great. But
yeah, we'll get used to it. The more success you're going to get, the more people are going to reach out to you about being a guest or a product, because they're going to be looking at your numbers on how many times people played your podcast, and they're going to be like, oh man, I'm going to get some exposure if I go and Mark My Words. So keep doing what you're doing, keep doing all the podcasts, and more people will start playing your podcast, and it'll just start taking off. So, this is going to be a great thing for you.
Well, I really appreciate that. And much like you, I have a certain purpose and, kind of an underlying goal or set of goals with what I'm doing. And I know that you have goals with what you're doing. And basically, you, whether you do it or not, you fit into one of the topics that I really wanted to explore on this podcast, which is basically career transition. And you have like a pretty special story, and I actually don't know a whole lot of your story. I kind of saved that for today and to give us talking points, as I voiced last week. I like to save my material. I'm talking like a comedian. Save our material.
Keep the spontaneity, right, for the podcast.
save our material for the show.
Yeah.
And let's start out with basically, so let's talk about your story
Okay.
and why exactly did you become a motivational coach? And we'll talk a little bit about your actual career transition and how you got there. But
Okay.
probably
Okay.
important for people to know how this came about in the first place. Like, why did you choose to become a motivational coach?
Okay. So my story starts off right at birth. Okay. As an infant, I was diagnosed with something called cerebral palsy. And what cerebral palsy is a condition that affects one side of the body, affects motor skills, and it can be so severe it can cause paralyzation. And apparently, in my situation, it was supposed to be more severe than it was. So the doctor went to my mom and said, I have to tell you that I don't believe your son's going to be able to walk ever, and that you need to get him used to being in a wheelchair. Well, thank goodness my mom didn't agree with the diagnosis and got a second, third, fifth opinion. And finally, she came upon a specialist that examined me and said, you know what, I think I can work with this kid. So we started. I mean, every single day for the first 10 years of my life, it was in physical therapy, working on the right side of my body. That's where it's affected, the right side of my body. And every day we work on it. And I don't know what exact age it was, but I started to walk, which was a great thing. But obviously, it wasn't the same way as most other kids. Held my right arm a little bit differently than other kids. So I remember going into sports as a young boy, soccer, and they had the time to say, hey, you know what, everybody run a lap. Well, I could barely run 50 yards. So it was real embarrassing for me as a kid watching the other kids run laps when I could barely go 50 yards, and having my mom tell to coach, hey, he has cerebral palsy, blah, 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 blah. He can't be like with the other kids. And that's tough as a kid. You want to fit in as much as you can as a kid, and not being able to do that was tough. So I got my second break. My first break obviously was being able to walk, but my second break was, I believe it was 7 or 8. I got surgery on my right foot to give me a little bit more mobility. And I remember switching schools to another school. And I remember the first day of physical education, PE. And again, the first day, they tell you to run a lap. So you have to run a lap. And I'm like, oh no, here we go again. All these kids are going to see that I can't run a lap. I can't even barely run 50 yards. But something miraculously happened this time. After my surgery, I was running, and I'm like, I'm keeping up with the kids. This is awesome. I'm doing it. I'm doing it. Keep going, Paul. You're doing it. You're doing it. Finish the lap. And, on the outside, I played it off like, oh, like all the other kids. But on the inside, I was like, yes, 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 yes. Finally, I was able to just fit in with the rest of the kids, and I didn't stand out. So that was another big break that happened with me. But again, I still walk with a little bit of a limp, and I still held my right arm a little differently. And kids can be pretty cruel. So, a lot of teasing, a lot of bullying. And it got worse because I switched to schools again in junior high. And in junior high, those kids that's like the worst age. They're trying to find themselves. So they're a lot more brutal on you during that time. So I remember 7th and 8th grade, especially, I would come home every day and I would cry in my room going, why me? Why me? Why me? And I don't know what happened, but sometime in 8th grade, something snapped in my head. I'm like, I'm sick of this. I don't want to cry anymore. I don't want to feel this bad every single day. I mean, it's horrible. It's a horrible feeling. And I'm thinking to myself, well, what can I do? How can I change this? And I thought to myself, like you, Mark, I'm a big sports guy, and my favorite sport's baseball. And I'm thinking to myself, well, I want to set a goal for myself. I want to make my varsity baseball team. And I thought to myself, oh, you know what? People are going to tease me. People are going to say, oh, this guy can't make the varsity baseball team. He can't even make the JV team. And I'm like, I don't care. I'm gonna put my mindset forward, and I'm gonna go. I don't care what the other kids think. I'm gonna keep going and have this goal. So every day after school, I throw a tennis ball against the wall every single day. I would join summer, winter, spring baseball, and kept going. And something happened when I was doing this, when I was having this transition in my head of really going for this goal. The mindset of the other kids, instead of teasing me, all of a sudden they started rooting for me. They saw that I had this goal and I was really working hard for it. Their transformation with me, it was night and day, and it was awesome. And I'm happy to tell you that I did make my my varsity baseball team as a junior, matter of fact. And in my senior year, I was a pitcher, and I played a little bit of the outfield. There was a game where I pitched a 3-hit shutout as a starter,
Wow.
and I batted over 300. So I was able to really contribute on my varsity baseball team. And then going forward after that, I just used this mindset in everything I did. Going to college, I'm in the West Coast, so I went to Cal State Fullerton, which is a big baseball school. I didn't make the team there, but I didn't care. I mean, my goal was met, is making that varsity baseball team. So I took that, got out of school, didn't really know what I wanted to do, so I got into sales, mortgage sales. And really enjoyed it, really thrived on it, was really good at it. But I've always still, read the inspirational books, always loved the underdog stories. And at some point, I was like, it wasn't fulfilling for me anymore. And I thought, well, what would be fulfilling? And I started reading books about coaches, motivational coaches. And I'm like, I want to do that. How do I do that? So I started taking classes on career coaching. And then I thought to myself, well, I got to make some transitions financially because, I'm making a lot of money now, but as a new coach, you're not going to be making the big bucks right away. So I had to make some sacrifices financially and made those sacrifices. Definitely not making the money I did as a mortgage banker, but I'm way more fulfilled in what I'm doing now. This is my full-time job, and here I am, call to action on Mark My Words podcast. So that's kind of my my story on where I got to in a nutshell there.
Wow, that is really an incredible story. And not only from my perspective does your story say something about you, it says something about the people that you were surrounded by. Because let's face it, it is hard for even adults sometimes to adapt to something that's a little different. And the fact that they came around and started to see Paul Forchione for who he really was through everything you were achieving out there on the field, I think is really a credit to the people you were surrounded by. And I know my story is certainly, I mean, I know that you certainly had your obstacles and your dark moments. I didn't have any moments of, I guess, crying. I mean, there's always crying when you're a kid. I mean, I'm not going to say that I'm that much of a, hard ass that I never cried over anything, but I think I definitely had much more of a shell and, just got to a point where I just never showed that kind of emotion. I think fitting in for me was completely different. I almost don't feel like I ever found that like real comfortable zone where I felt like, I wasn't getting picked on or anything like that. There was always somebody, I was always kind of like out of the loop, just remembering even back to like first grade, everybody picking people for teams. I don't even know what we were playing back then, but just kind of being alone and, just teachers weren't coming to bat for me. And, it was a real struggle for me. And it sounds to me like because of those experiences, and even though I think a lot of us don't really know what we want to do necessarily or have found that calling that really gives us a fire in our belly that we put ourselves out there kind of like we are now. But it sounds like that fire was stoked because of all those positive experiences and you wanted more of that. And I know from my experiences over the past decade or so, that is kind of how I've built myself up. And one question that I want to ask is, did you have to ever really build yourself up personally, or were you able to build yourself up just through the positive reinforcement?
Oh, I definitely had to build myself up personally. Especially in those junior high days when I set that goal for myself to become a varsity baseball player. There was a lot of doubt. And like I said, there was a lot of kids at that point in time that said, "No way, this kid's going to even step on the field." So I had a lot of insecurities about that, and I just, like I said, I just started. Lack of a better word, I stopped caring on what other people were thinking. You know what? Screw them. You know what? If they don't like me or whatever, but I have this goal, and if I don't make it, I can live with it as long as I give it my all. And that's what I did. I gave it my all, like every single day after school. That's what I was doing. I was throwing a tennis ball. I was always throwing, hitting, batting cage. My mom was awesome that way. I mean, she would drive me to the batting cage, the practice, because I was playing all year round. So, I mean, she was like, drive me around. I'm sure different cities. It was a lot on her, but she knew what my goal was, and she's been very, very supportive. And without my mom in my life being a voice for me as an infant, I'd be in a wheelchair right now. So I owe a lot to my mom for her support in all this.
Oh, yeah. I was just going to ask, your feelings on the role that your mom played. And I think you pretty much articulated that for me. So thanks.
No problem.
um,
I'm reading your mind.
you're reading my mind. You talking about your mom, and I don't talk a lot about my family at this point. That's a whole nother story for me. But I do know that my mom played kind of a similar role just listening to your story. And I know a lot of people didn't believe that I could speak publicly because of being born with cleft palate and lip. And I think I might talk about this story in the first episode where it's just me talking. But if you haven't gotten to that episode, I'll just quickly clarify. I was in Catholic school, again, kind of an outcast, kind of somebody nobody really wanted to talk to or give much of a chance. And I was going to speech therapy a few times a week. And there was, I guess, every week or whatever it was that we had our mass, they would give a certain class an opportunity to, I guess, run the mass, quote unquote, whatever that means to you in your head. But
I'm from a Catholic background, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
yeah, they would just basically let kids speak during the mass and participate, I guess. And there was something like a small thing, I don't even remember what exactly it was, but there was a small thing that they wanted somebody to read, and I think I mean, I don't really even remember the story that well, but I think I may have wanted to participate and do it. And not only was my teacher hesitant, but like there were other people, like this one nun. I remember her specifically being against me speaking at mass, and a
Hmm.
couple parents expressed concern, and people were concerned that they wouldn't be able to understand me. But my mom stepped up and really went to bat, and I wound up by the end of it, after practicing and everything else, and all everybody did was pat me on the back. I remember it being extremely positive, and a lot of where I am today, I'm very grateful to my mom because she would wake me up at 5 in the morning. If you remember those teaching stores where they have all those teaching books and things like that that you can, I guess, teachers can buy. My mom would buy those books, wake me up 5 in the morning, and we would go over English and phonics and all kinds of stuff. Like, my mom worked extremely hard to make sure that I had the best opportunity that I could to be successful and to be where I am today, basically. And I can totally relate to what you're talking about, your story and the role that your mom had. And don't necessarily want to think about anything that's happened, you know, away from that. But definitely, I owe my mom like a lot to where I'm at today. And you know, do you feel like your mom was kind of like her involvement and encouragement? Was that like a stepping stone to just building yourself up more?
Before I answer that, I want to say kudos to your mom for having the courage to step up to the nuns and everybody in the clergy to have you speak, because I think not only did I think they learned a lesson because you did a great job, and I think they thought to themselves, you know what, I need to give people a chance. So hopefully going forward after that, if somebody had this speech impediment that you had going forward, they'd go, sure, we'll give him a chance to speak in mass. Why not? Why not give him a shot, or him or her a shot? So kudos to your mom for stepping up for you, and kudos to you for putting in the work to do a great job reading in mass. So I wanted to first say that. Second of all, your question about my mom. Yeah, I mean, in a way, she has been my motivational coach, or my life coach. You know, there's been times in my life, you know, like everybody's life, where you're down, and you know, and sometimes she'll send me a card that says, you know, just basically saying, Paul, you got this, keep going. And just those simple words, they mean more than just you got this. But the fact that she took the time to mail a letter to me to say that, I mean, so yeah, I owe a lot to her on not giving up, having dreams. And, you know, like I've talked to my mom for many years about wanting to do this. And she's always encouraged me to do it and to put myself in a place to do it, you know, not just go out and do it, but have a plan. You know what I mean? A lot of people, you know, if you just go out and just do it, you know, that could be all well and good, but it's good to have a plan in place. So when you start your new journey, you have some sort of roadmap. Now, I know there's going to be plenty of roadblocks, and there's already have been roadblocks in what I'm doing, especially with this pandemic. It's really not that great for business, but you know, you have to practice a open mind, a growth mindset, and evaluate the problems at hand. And if there's an obstacle, you know, just don't, you know, you get frustrated, you can get frustrated, that's fine, but take a breath, breathe, evaluate the situation, and find a way to get over it, because if there's a will, there's a way. So yeah, I owe my mom a lot.
Well, with you having obstacles along the way and really throughout your whole life, I feel like one way that we're probably similar as well is just the will to succeed and the drive. Do you feel like you have kind of like, I mean, obviously you were an athlete and played baseball for a few years, and I'm sure that some of that drive came from that. But I know as somebody who, while sports has been a big part of my life, and I did play for quite a few years up to a certain point, I almost feel like I would have had a certain determination and drive to make it just because of all the naysayers I've had in my life. And I just want to know, what do you feel like you would have had this drive? Do you feel it even today where it's like, I gotta keep hitting it, I gotta succeed, I gotta get my message out there?
Well, yeah, no question. I think that having cerebral palsy definitely was a disadvantage for me for most of my life. But now you look back and you have perspective on it, and it's actually molded my life, and it's actually like you alluded to, it's given me the drive to move forward because things weren't very easy for me, and they still aren't to a certain degree, but not so much as more so as a child. So yeah, I think by having this setback that I had to work 10 times harder than any other kid because all those other kids, they could walk, run, easy. But for me, it took years and years and years and years of practice to do that. So yeah, I would say that having this disability is actually now think that having this setback has actually now been an advantage to me.
Oh wow, I think I may have lost you a little bit on your audio. You were kind of just, I don't know, it said my connection was unstable, but at least my power did not go out. Like
Okay,
hours.
well, yeah, I said something profound too. No, I'm just kidding. No, but basically, I won't repeat the whole thing because it may not have gone out. But basically, I've now used my disability. I have cerebral palsy, and it's used me. I've used it now to catapult me in success because of the fact that I had to work that much harder than other people did because of my disability.
Oh yeah, I totally get that. Just the idea of you feel like you have to work harder, and boy, do I ever feel that. Still to this day, every day, I feel like nothing comes easy. And one thing I want to get into is, so you're a motivational coach and you're bringing your experience to this role. And I just want to ask, how exactly are you bringing this experience to your clients? In what way is your path helping everybody that you talk to today?
Well, I think there's an empathy factor. If I'm working with somebody that has a disadvantage or having a hard time, maybe physically, mentally, or just having a hard time with things, I bring a sense of empathy to say, you know what, I get it, I understand, I know what you're going through, and so I can give my experiences of what I did to help them in their way because they know that I'm coming from an authentic voice that I've been through it. So they're like, oh, okay, yeah, let's try that, or that didn't work. So I'm a positive force in their life. I'm not somebody that's like I tell everybody, all my clients, you're going to be doing the heavy lifting, not me. But what I'm going to be there for is like when you're in the weeds and things are so bad, that you're like, oh man, this is awful. This is awful. Your session with me is tomorrow, and we can talk about it, and we can press the reset button. We can talk about the things that are going good and the things that are going bad, and we concentrate on what's going good, and we focus in on that. So until the next session you can focusing on the positive things that are going forward, and not eliminate the negative things, but be aware of those negative things and try to focus in on what's going right rather than what's going wrong.
So you believe in the glass is half full, not half empty approach.
Yeah, I believe in positive thinking. I don't care what successful person you name, a successful person, they have some sort of positive thinking. Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, even going to sports, Tom Brady, Michael Jordan. They had that mindset, that positive mindset to go forward. That Yeah, they have setbacks. It's all about that fear of failure. A lot of people, don't want to, press the boundaries, whether in their personal or career life, because they're scared of failing. And a lot of these people that are successful embrace failure. I mean, you talk, I know we were talking about the docuseries Last Dance, and Michael Jordan didn't say it in the Last Dance, but I've heard him say this before. They asked him point blank, how are you able, to have the guts to take that last shot over and over and over again? And his answer is, I'm not afraid to miss. So, I mean, and he talks about it. I've missed the last shot way more times than I made it, but I'm not afraid of it. If I'm not afraid of it, let's go. Let's give it our all, because a lot of people get frozen in that fear and don't want to take that shot because they're so scared of that miss. But you know what? That's the only way you're going to grow, is by failing, setting lofty goals for yourself. A lot of times it's not always about the accomplishing the goal. It's that journey that you go through. I use this analogy a lot. You look at it, a child when they're building Legos, and let's say they build something and they're proud of it. They probably show their mom and their dad, but I guarantee you the best time they had was not when they were showing their mom and dad, was when they're actually building something in that journey. And that's what we got to embrace, is being present. The past is gone. The future's not guaranteed, but you're guaranteed the present. So you want to make the most of it right now, living right now.
And that is a very good mindset to have. And I have to admit, that's something I still need to work on, because for as much progress as I've made personally, I have to admit that and I have like a 90-minute commute. That probably does not help. So it gives me a lot of time to think. But I have come a long way, and definitely will at least say I understand that, yeah, you definitely cannot. In order to move forward, you have to, at some point, even if you come back to the past later at some point, where you're driving to work or whatever, the main part of your day, you have to remain mentally disciplined and focused on now, because now is only going to happen now, and you can't get now back once now is over. And
absolutely right. Absolutely right. We only have one life, so we might as well make the most of it, correct?
Absolutely. And I mean, for me to get to where I'm at even now, I really had to, at the very least, work on myself to a point where I don't allow my present and future goals to be affected by dwelling on anything that's happened in the past. Like, even if you do dwell on the past, you have to put it aside in order to move forward and give yourself at least an opportunity to evolve. And
absolutely, you can learn from the past. You can learn about your mistakes, but I've interviewed a lot of people in their 60s, 70s, and 80s, at a research to become a coach. And then the number one thing they talk about is not what they did, but what they didn't do, their regrets. They wish they had an opportunity to start that business, or they had an opportunity to ask out that girl or that boy, or travel to another country or whatever, but they didn't do it. And that's what they talk about. They don't talk about, playing it safe, not taking any risks. They talk about what they didn't do. So that's very important.
I totally agree. And I think as we build up those kind of misshot memories as we get older, the queue can get pretty large. So especially if you've had a lot of struggles or missed shots, so to speak, can get really easy to go down that rabbit hole. And once you get into that mindset, it takes a lot of work to train yourself out of it. And I know, this is going to sound really cheesy. I'm taking this from a movie, but work is hard. So,
it definitely is, and every day you're a work in progress. Every day it's a work in progress for me. I have negative thoughts. I am sad. I am angry, but that's okay. You can feel those feelings. I never want anybody to suppress their feelings. If they're angry, they're angry. If they're sad, they're sad. That's fine. But how long do you want to be angry or sad? If you want, the trick is to be aware of it. Go, you know what? I've been sad for a little bit now. I don't want to be sad anymore. Well, now that's when you start thinking about things that you should be grateful for. And it could be, if you have a good job, it could be you have a good job, or a husband or a wife, kids, or your health, whatever it is. You start focusing on what is going right in your life. And then you'll be surprised if you do that every morning. Just think about things that are going well in your life. You'd be surprised how well your day will start. I mean, things happen in your day that will throw you off kilter. I'm not saying that, but if you have that mindset going forward when you're out the door to go to work, you're going to be that much better.
And just for a record, the movie and character I was thinking of, Wayne's World 2, Handsome Dan, when Wayne and Garfield, Handsome Dan, he says, well, work is hard. And it's a stupid line, and it's supposed to be funny, but he's right. So it's kind of like American Pie, where the coach is like, well, you don't score until you score. And I knew where he was coming from, and obviously I know what they were going for in the movie, but there's a lot of truth to that too. But I digress. I'm getting off track.
Wayne's World 2, I haven't seen that movie in probably 20 years. It was a good movie. I mean, I prefer Wayne's World 1, the first one. Yeah. Obviously the sequel's never as good as the first one, unless we're talking about The Godfathers, but I digress there. But Mike Myers, whatever happened to him?
He was, my job a year or two ago was to do quality control on on-demand TV and movies, and he was the host of Match Game, but he wasn't Mike Myers. He dressed up in character. So that's like the last thing that I know of that he's done.
That's kind of odd that he just. Well, I mean, I know that he likes to do characters. I mean, with the Austin Powers series, he's always doing characters. I take that back. I do remember him in one movie, and it reminded me of Wayne's World because he was in the Queen movie, and that famous scene of Bohemian Rhapsody with him and his friends in the car.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of brought that movie back, brought that song back. That I think Wayne's World was in the '90s, and that song was popular in the '70s, but it brought it back to, I think, almost number one just because of that movie and that scene. So, and then it's kind of crazy that 20 years after that, or 20 plus years after that, he's in the Queen movie. So I guess everything goes full circle.
And now you got me thinking of the "I'm in love with my car." That's something that kids can bang their heads to, or whatever the line was.
Yeah,
I remember weird stuff like that. But one thing that I do remember from reading, I believe either on your site or on your LinkedIn, put this in my notes, wanted to ask you, what exactly does changing negative mindsets into positive mindsets mean to you? How do you do that? Because I thought that was a really interesting wording.
Yeah, I kind of alluded to it a little bit, but basically what it is a couple things. One is, everybody has negative thoughts. I mean, we're all humans. We have negative thoughts. We think about negative things. But be aware of your negative thoughts. You know what I mean? If you have a negative thought, change it. Don't go down that rabbit hole. You think this negative thought, and then this happens. Go, when you start thinking of these negative thoughts, whoa, wait. Let's not go down this rabbit hole, and let's not worry about things that have not happened yet. And let's start to think about things that could go right in this situation. Start training your mind to go positive than negative. And it just starts with, that negative thought and being aware, oh no, I'm starting to think this negative way. Or, just say like you're in a job and you're doing a presentation and you start thinking these negative thoughts. Oh, what if I forget the words? What if I forget this? And then you start going a rabbit hole, and then people are going to laugh at me and they're not going to understand my message. And then you just go down. But what if instead of saying that, going, after this presentation, what if everybody gives me applause and shakes my hand and says, well done. And you know what? You did so well. I want you to do next week's presentation. Why not think about what could go right as opposed to what could go wrong? Those are huge things. And then it also goes into to that limited mindset that a lot of people have. Like, like what you were talking about, like, you probably, as a kid or something like that, you're talking about, maybe in the back of your mind, you thought about being in public speaking and stuff, but you thought, oh, maybe that's not for me. You limited your mind saying, you put it out saying, I can't do that. And now you've changed your mindset. You think, you know what, why not me? Why can't I do it? I'm just as good as this other guy. Why can't I get up there and do it? And here you are doing a podcast. So it's changing your thinking on why not me? Why am I not worthy of hosting a podcast or getting up and talking in front of people? Why not do it? Like, don't worry about what other people think of you and limiting your mind. Expand, try. What's the word? I always talk about this with a lot of my clients. Let's talk about the worst case scenario. And they talk about the worst case scenario. And I go, is it that bad? You think that's that bad? Well, then let's do it. Let's go for it. Let's come up with a plan to do that. So I hope that answered your question.
It absolutely did. And I think for me, it was really like a lifelong process. I always wanted to, I think deep down inside, wanted to be out there in front and wanted to express myself that way, whether it was public speaking or, believe it or not, acting. I actually took an acting class in college where before every class was so nervous, I had to go to the bathroom and, I just so nervous every single class. But it always turned out fine, and I always did a good job. Granted, it didn't necessarily push me to further put myself out there, and I guess a lot of that had to do with not having enough of like a support system around me. But it did plant a little seed in my mind of like, okay, maybe someday, once I work on myself enough that I'm ready, ooh, excuse me, that I will remember that. So that, along with just me continuing to just step by step, little by little, work, just little victories along the way for me is what led me to where I'm at today. And a lot of bigger victories occurred over the past like 6-7 years, and obviously a much better support system around me has helped with that. And just little by little, meeting more and more people that change my mind. Maybe they didn't directly try to motivate or inspire me, but I took something away from those experiences. And as a result, like it was up to me. It wasn't like anybody said, you're an incredible speaker or you're really great at this or that. But I took the positive feedback that I received and said, you know what, maybe I can do these things that I want to do. And as a result, I've always been the kind of person to kind of push myself anyway. I've always, as I told you when we talked before, I'm kind of like a one-man gang, so to speak. So I've felt it's always been in my court to push myself and to motivate myself. And for me, that's how I wound up getting to where I'm at now.
Absolutely. And what I was thinking about when you were talking about that, the 6 or 7 years that you were talking about that you've really stretched yourself, you've put yourself in uncomfortable situations, correct?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You stretched yourself. And I preach that a lot. Get comfortable with being uncomfortable. you will stretch yourself to places you've never been before. But if you stay in that comfort zone, you'll never grow. You got to push your box out and try different things, because you never know. You try something new, and it could be, a new career move. You could meet your soulmate or whatever it is, but you will never know if you stay in your little box. And kudos to you for realizing that and pushing yourself out of it. And obviously you're continuing to do that, as I am as well. Keep learning, keep changing with your new journey.
Well, speaking of journeys, what's next for your journey? Because you have the motivational coaching career. You just started a podcast. And where do you see everything going for you from here?
Well, thank you for asking me this question, by the way. My goal for myself now would be I would love to do start with a TEDx talk, and then hopefully make that be a TED Talk, and then maybe one day, people come and buy tickets to listen to me speak. That would be my ultimate goal, is somehow, some way getting in an arena where people are paying money to hearing me talk. And I even thought about my intro, that would be my ultimate goal. So my next venture, and I'm patient, and that's what I preach with my clients too, is patience. I mean, we're in a society, especially with the internet and everything, everything's instant. But sometimes it can't be instant. So these goals that I'm setting may take many, many years, and I have to have perspective of that it's just not going to be, at my fingertips every second. But I read a great book. I don't know if you've ever read it, Mark. It's called Grit by Angela Duckworth.
I have not read it.
Okay, I highly recommend it. As a matter of fact, I'll show you here. It's the book here. I just finished it.
All right, fantastic.
And basically, the book talks about the persistence. Not that instant gratification, but it's not going to be easy. You kind of have to get up and grind. You have the goal in mind. It's a lofty goal, and you can't just wake up one morning and just grab it. You have to continually chip away, and then one day it'll be there. But you can't just expect it to just fall in your lap. And I realize that these goals that I've set are quite lofty and can be frustrating. Not to hit time periods, but it's definitely something that I've been thinking about and that I want to do.
There are very few people that are able to succeed with things just falling on their lap. So that is something that I know people like us haven't necessarily gotten sucked into that, because we've always had to work so hard. But I think that's something that a lot of people don't understand, that they may see me doing this or doing other things, and it took a lot of work. It didn't just fall into my lap. Believe me, it really did not. So,
yeah. Everything that it's worthwhile takes work. And if you're setting goals that are that easy to hit, then maybe you need to reevaluate and set higher goals to yourself. Somebody said this, I can't remember who, but he was an inspirational speaker. I forget the name, but he said that his dad told him, he goes, I'm going to be upset with you if you set low goals and hit every one, as opposed to setting high goals and missing. I'd much rather you set high goals and miss than set low goals and hit. And I really think that's powerful. That's really, really powerful. And that goes back to what I'm talking about. It's the journey. That's the most important thing. It's the attempt to do something. It's the attempt to do it. That's the most gratifying thing or not. I mean, whether I get the big stage or not, if it doesn't happen for me, well, the worst thing that will happen is it doesn't happen for me. But what if it does happen for me? And I didn't set my goal high enough. You know what I mean? So why not set these lofty goals and go for it? Because what's the harm in it? The only thing I see is that if I don't set that goal, it will never happen for me. So I might as well try, right? I mean,
And there's another coach out there. His name is Scott Stoltz. He was my first guest on this show. And one thing that he always tells me and emphasizes is that he doesn't want to be old, sitting in a rocking chair and think back and say, boy, I should have done this or that, or should have tried, starting that coaching career, or I should have done that podcast. And that rings true to me as well. And that's the whole reason that I'm doing something like this today. It all started with the blog, and I left my job. I was given a buyout package a few years ago and realized that I hadn't really worked towards any of the things that I wanted to do when I was younger. It was like, man, this is probably the time to stop chasing after corporate dreams and trying to rise up the corporate ladder, which, I'm obviously still open to if that were to happen in my current career. But it just kind of woke me up to the fact that I need to start thinking about things that are more personal to me. And that's really where I think this part of the journey really started. I don't necessarily want to say the journey as a whole, because the journey's been going for my whole life. So, this has just been an ongoing journey of growing and evolving and trying to figure it all out. And this is just a new phase, but I think it woke me up to, I need to up my game for myself, because I don't want to have those regrets down the line. And
yeah.
I don't know if that played into, I know you were in another career before you started coaching, and I know you kind of alluded to it, but was there just a point where you said, you know what, I have to do this now. Now is the time. I have to make this transition. How did that unfold for you?
Very, very good question, because that's a very poignant thing in my life. For many, many years, I really, really enjoyed being in the mortgage industry. I've been in it, since 2005. And I hit, that big depression that we hit in 2008 that really shook the whole industry. And as a result of that shaking of the industry, it really regulated my job, so to speak. And for some things that were good, because there was a lot of bad people in my industry, taking advantage of people and stuff like that. But that wasn't me. That wasn't how I build my rapport. I build it by helping people. But my point in saying that is they put these rules in place that really hindered everybody. So I would be on the phone and I have to say my mortgage license number, and it got so stressful. I'd have a phone call and they would ask me the rates and stuff like that, and I'd be like, oh crap, I didn't say my mortgage license number, and oh man, was that a secret shopper? Am I going to get fired for doing that and this and that? So the job changed. It was too much regulation. I really couldn't build the rapport that I was building before with people. It's more transactional. I started to feel more, I hate to say it like this, but I started to feel almost like a used car salesman, because people were, just asking about the rates. And if I was in the lowest rate, go down the road, because I'm not going to use you. And it used to be about, okay, building rapport and getting you to in that house and helping you step by step, but it kind of, the whole thing kind of changed. And I wanted to get into a career like we talked about that is just more inspiring. Yeah, taking a pay cut, big time pay cut. But you know what? sometimes it's not about the money, and sometimes it's about your happiness and what you're doing. And I feel like as long as I keep my head down and do the right things, the money will come. I don't know if it'll come at the same level it did before, but I feel like if I keep working hard and have my first focus on helping people, being that my first goal is helping people, then I'll be fine. So that's really why the transition, and you know as well as I do, in that corporate world, it doesn't always run that smoothly. You have people in these levels that have never done your job before, but telling you what to do, and you're like, that does not even make any sense. And you're like, you better do it or you're going to be fired. And it's like, you have no idea what you're doing, So it just got to the point. I'm going to be turning 40 soon, so maybe maybe a midlife crisis type thing too. But I think that helping people and focusing on that is what I was meant to do.
Well, just a note on the midlife crisis thing. So I'm 41 now. I started this part of my journey about 4 years ago. And for me personally, I don't feel like it's so much a midlife crisis. I think it's like I've basically evolved and have grown to a point where I feel like I have the wisdom and I feel comfortable with myself and ready to take on some of the challenges that I'm doing now. Because I thought about this stuff for years. There's no way I could have done this podcast 10 years ago as the person I was. And the person I was back then was fine. I'm not trying to go back and analyze or criticize who I might have been back then, but I was a different kind of me, and definitely did not have the wisdom and confidence, and I just didn't hit that point. So maybe what I'm telling you will make you think about that a little differently, but
yeah, midlife crisis. That was a poor analogy. That was the first thing that came to my head. If I could use different words, I would. I didn't mean that way, but yeah, I think it's more what you're on the lines of what you're talking about is life experiences that kind of start changing you, and definitely that's been the case. I mean, this obviously as a kid, it really put the foundation in, but just as I've gotten older and talking with people. The life experiences. So yeah, you're right. The midlife crisis, that was a bad analogy. So yeah.
Hey, quite all right. I mean, hey, I coughed into the mic already in this episode, which was way worse. So
it's okay. We all have our mistakes that we do. Coughing in the mic. Oh well, I think I've coughed in the mic many times in my podcast. So I apologize to any of the viewers if I coughed.
Yeah, no, I definitely apologize. I work really hard not to cough because I'm one of those people that once I talk a lot, sometimes my throat gets really dry, which is why I always have this water here.
Now you make me want to drink. Now I'm going to drink my drink. It's like the yawning thing. When somebody starts yawning, I start to yawn.
So... yeah, that's the first cough I've had on this podcast so far, so that's pretty good. But
yeah, good job.
Yeah, allergies are kind of bad right now, so I knew it was going to happen at some point. But
yeah, absolutely.
Anyway.
I take allergy medicine myself, with the cut grass. I run a lot. So sometimes when I run in the grass and I stop running, I'm like sneezing and coughing. So, I'm like, I promise I'm not the coronavirus. I'm fine. It's just allergies. So, but I do my social distancing and such. So I'm not around too many people when I do it, but I just don't want, I feel, I don't want people to feel uncomfortable because I'm sneezing. It's because I have allergies during this time of year.
Well, that is super self-conscious of you. And you're making me think about mowing my lawn, which I'm going to have to do real soon to grass is embarrassingly high here. But this is all leading me to closing this out. This was an amazing conversation. I'm so glad that you messaged me and volunteered to be on this podcast. And I really appreciate it. You were an incredible guest. And I just want to now ask if you can share how anybody can either reach you for your services or can just follow you on social media. How can we do that?
Okay, well, first, before I say that, I want to say that you are a tremendous host. You made me feel gracious the whole time, made me feel comfortable. I felt important throughout the whole interview, so I thank you for that, and I appreciate it. And I hope you a lot of success on Mark My Words podcast. I know it'll do well because of your heart. You have a kind heart. I can see that. So thank you so much for this opportunity. And with that being said, the best way to get a hold of me is a couple ways. My website, a call to action.coach. You can hit me up on Facebook at a call to action. And if you like podcasts, you can listen to Actions and Limits, and you can hit it on any podcast venue, and we're also on YouTube. So those are the ways to get a hold of me.
All right, then. I appreciate all the kind words that you shared, because when I do this podcast, even though it's called Mark My Words, I really try to make it about the guests. It's not really about me. And I've always been called like a good listener, and maybe I don't talk or interject quite enough, but I just like to listen, and I like to give everybody else the spotlight. And I really appreciate the kind words, and thank you for sharing your story and your social media, and thanks for being on Mark My Words.
Thanks, Mark. I love the time. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, everybody, and I'll come back at you with another episode real soon. So thanks for tuning in.